if the apocalypse happens tomorrow, right, and the power grid just completely fails.
A terrifying thought, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so imagine every cell tower on the continent goes entirely dark. Do you know what piece of technology will still be actively buzzing in the pockets of roughly 2 million people?
I do, and it still honestly surprises me every time we talk about it.
It's a pager, a literal old-school pager. So today we are doing a deep dive into this fascinating stack of research detailing 6 discontinued iconic gadgets from the 1990s.
Right, the stuff that people surprisingly still miss and, well, in some cases actually still use.
Exactly. But our mission here isn't just some, fun nostalgia trip. We are going to figure out exactly how these clunky, single-purpose plastic bricks paved the way for our modern world.
And why we are suddenly longing for technology that deliberately didn't warp our attention spans.
Yeah, because let's be honest here. Take a second. Just think about the smartphone you're probably using right now. Doesn't it ever just, completely exhaust you?
The psychological toll of being perpetually connected is immense. We are currently carrying around a device that acts less like a tool and more like a highly demanding digital toddler.
That is the perfect way to describe it.
Right. Every haptic buzz and notification sliding across your screen is designed by a ruthless attention economy. It's meant to interrupt whatever you are doing.
Yeah.
But if we look back at the source material on these 1990s gadgets, we see a completely different paradigm. Technology back then was viewed through a lens of pure, unadulterated optimism.
The 90s tech boom. The World Wide Web became publicly accessible in 1991, and suddenly computers were just everywhere. They went mainstream.
It was an era of pure innovation. Tech was seen simply as a miraculous way to untether ourselves from the desk or, the living room wall.
Right, just freedom.
Exactly. The engineers designing these gadgets had absolutely zero foresight into the addictive social media algorithms or the mental health challenges of the 2020s. They were just trying to solve physical limitations.
I love that. I look at this deep dive as kind of like flipping through the awkward but charming teenage photo album of our sleek, modern, smart devices.
That's a great analogy.
Before the smartphone grew up, got a corporate job, and started stressing us out, it was just a cassette player trying to figure itself out.
Yeah.
And that idea of untethering is the perfect place to start.
Where do we begin?
Well, before humanity could figure out how to put an entire supercomputer into our pockets, we first needed to break free from the living room furniture.
Right. That breaking of the literal tether started with visual media, the VCR. Now, the underlying magnetic tape technology had been around for decades, really since the 50s.
Right.
But it was in the late 70s through the 90s that the VCR caused a massive cultural earthquake. Before that box sat under your television, network executives completely dictated your schedule.
Yeah, you had no choice.
None. If a network aired a show at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, you had to be sitting on your couch at 8 p.m. If you missed it, it was just gone into the ether.
The absolute tyranny of appointment viewing.
It really was. But the VCR handed the remote control of time directly to the consumer. For the first time in human history, you could engage in asynchronous viewing.
Which was huge.
It was revolutionary. You could record a live broadcast to watch later or rent a movie to watch entirely on your own terms. That fundamental shift in consumer expectation.
The idea that the media should wait for you.
Exactly. That idea is the direct structural foundation for the entire on-demand streaming culture we live in today. Of course, the decline started with DVDs in the early 2000s, and the final VCR wasn't made until Funai Electronics stopped in 2016, but its legacy is everywhere.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I am looking at my own streaming habits right now, and I kind of want to push back on the idea that this was purely a technological win.
Oh, how so?
Well, was that massive, wobbly stack of plastic VCR tapes sitting next to the TV basically just the slow, clunky grandfather of the modern Netflix choose-your-own-adventure algorithm?
That's an interesting way to frame it.
Right, because I have to ask, wait, is that actual intentionality we're nostalgic for, or are we just looking at bad tech through rose-tinted glasses?
I think you're getting at.
I remember driving to the video store in the pouring rain, paying $3 in late fees, and fighting with a tracking dial just to watch a blurry movie. Wasn't Netflix removing that friction an objective upgrade? Not a loss?
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of that exact friction you are describing. In modern user experience design, the ultimate goal is to eliminate all friction.
Right, make it as easy as possible.
Exactly. Netflix automatically plays the next episode in 5 seconds, specifically so you don't have to make a choice. It requires zero effort to keep consuming.
Just a continuous feed.
But friction. The act of driving to a store in the rain, browsing physical boxes, driving home, pushing a clunky tape into a machine that forces intentionality.
Oh, I see.
Because you invested physical effort and time into that specific movie, your brain was psychologically primed to actually sit down and pay attention to it. We have successfully removed the friction from media, but in the process, we inadvertently removed the intentionality.
Wow. So the effort was the investment. We value the entertainment more because we actually had to work for it, whereas today we just, mindlessly scroll through 1,000 thumbnails for 20 minutes and then fall asleep.
That's exactly what happens.
That really changes how I look at those heavy plastic tapes.
Yeah.
And taking media on our own terms wasn't just for video, right? It was for audio, too. Enter the legendary Sony Walkman.
Ah, yes. A device that completely rewired our relationship with public spaces. When the Walkman rolled out in 1979, and certainly as it peaked in the 90s, it allowed a whole generation to take their customized audio on the road.
Long before Bluetooth was even a sci-fi concept.
Precisely. Before the Walkman, listening to music in a park or on a street meant carrying a boombox.
Which meant everyone else in a 3-block radius had to listen to exactly what you were listening to.
Yes, whether they wanted to or not.
But the Walkman let you soundtrack your own life privately. It created this invisible, personal audio bubble that you could just carry onto a crowded subway.
The creation of the private audio bubble was a radical concept. Sony sold over 200 million units.
That is a staggering number.
It really is. Now, of course, the physical cassette Walkman was eventually doomed. It was cannibalized by the digital revolution, heavily accelerated by the iPod in 2001, leading to its discontinuation in 2010.
Right, the classic tech life cycle.
However, the source material points out a brilliant modern twist. Dedicated, single-purpose digital music players, including new models under the Walkman brand, are experiencing a massive resurgence right now.
Wait, really? People are actually spending money on a device that only plays music when they already have Spotify on the phone in their pocket?
They are buying them specifically because they don't have Spotify or an internet connection. People are actively seeking out escapes from their smartphones.
Huh. That is fascinating.
Think about listening to music on your phone today. Your favorite song is constantly being interrupted by a jarring text tone, a news alert, or a calendar reminder.
Oh, I hate that. It totally pulls you out of the moment.
Exactly. The modern consumer is starting to view the limitations of a device, the fact that a music player cannot physically receive a work email, as a highly desirable feature rather than a technological bug.
A feature, not a bug. The ultimate luxury of simply not being interrupted.
It's a huge shift in mindset.
But the Walkman proved we fiercely craved a personalized, private bubble for our media. Audio, however, is a one-way street. You just consume it. The real test of this new, untethered mindset was whether we could take two-way communication and creation into that bubble.
Right, the drive to connect and record out in the wild. And the recording aspect brings us to one of the most bizarre technological origin stories of the 1990s, the Talkboy.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the Talkboy was a handheld cassette device that let you record audio and play it back at varying speeds.
It was so iconic.
Right. You can make your voice sound super deep and slow, or like chipmunk high, but it didn't start in an engineering lab. The Talkboy is the ultimate fake-it-till-you-make-it story.
Oh, totally.
It was dreamed up entirely as a fictional prop for the 1992 movie Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
The character Kevin McAllister needed a cool gadget to trick the adults in the movie, so the prop department literally just glued some plastic together.
Just a dummy prop.
Exactly. But the toy company Tiger Electronics saw the theatrical release and recognized an incredible opportunity. They decided to reverse engineer a real, functioning consumer product based entirely on this fake movie prop.
That is just wild to me. We usually think of movies being inspired by real-world cutting-edge tech. But here, the hardware industry was so hungry for innovation that they actively took their R&D marching orders from a Hollywood comedy.
And it paid off initially.
Oh, it caused absolute chaos.
Yeah.
When the functional Talkboy hit shelves, the demand was so unprecedented it caused massive holiday shortages in 1993. It was the absolute peak of cool.
For a brief moment, yes.
But because it was essentially a novelty toy born from a movie, it flared up and burned out quickly, fading away by 1999. Although I hear it's still alive on eBay for time-traveling nostalgists.
It's a perfect example of pop culture driving rapid, short-term technological adoption. But parallel to that flash-in-the-pan novelty was a much more serious structural evolution in portable communication.
Oh, definitely.
A device that was the exact opposite of a toy, the pager.
The ultimate 90s status symbol. If you had a pager clipped to your belt, you were either a doctor saving lives, a very busy drug dealer, or the most popular kid in high school.
Those were the three demographics, yes.
You would feel that heavy buzz, look down at the tiny LCD screen, see a phone number or a numeric code, and then you had to go physically hunt down a payphone to call them back.
The friction we were talking about earlier. But while they peaked in 1994 with roughly 61 million users, the foundational blueprint for the pager is shockingly old.
Oh, how old are we talking?
Well, the Detroit Police Department actually implemented a rudimentary one-way radio communication system in their squad cars back in 1921.
1921, that's incredible.
And it goes further. Later, in 1949, an inventor named Al Gross patented a telephone pager system that was specifically adopted by a Jewish hospital in New York City. The first real consumer model didn't hit until the 1964 Motorola Pageboy 1.
You know, a hospital environment makes total sense for the genesis of this.
Yeah.
You have life or death situations where you need to reach a specific doctor immediately, but they are constantly roaming between floors and wards.
Exactly. From its very inception, the pager was designed as vital, unbreakable communication infrastructure. It wasn't about chatting back and forth.
Right, no text thread.
It was about the critical transfer of a single data point. I need you now.
The general public mostly abandoned them when Motorola stepped away from the pager business in 2001. Right.
Yeah.
Trading them in for flip phones and eventually smartphones.
Yes, the market moved on.
But this brings me back to the fact that completely blew my mind in the research. 2 million people still use pagers today. So I have to challenge you on this. Did we make a massive mistake by completely abandoning this technology for fragile cell phones that, drop a call the second you step into an elevator or a concrete parking garage?
I love that you brought this up. This raises an important question about how we evaluate what makes technology good. We have a terrible habit of conflating newer with more reliable.
Guilty as charged.
Let's look at the actual mechanism of how these two networks operate. Cellular networks rely on highly complex overlapping towers passing data packets back and forth.
Right.
When a major crisis hits, say a natural disaster or a massive power outage, everyone grabs their smartphone at the exact same time. The cell network is like a massive multi-lane highway where everyone slams on their brakes at once. The system completely gridlocks.
The network gets overloaded, and your $1,000 phone is essentially a glowing brick.
Precisely. Pager networks, on the other hand, operate on completely different, much simpler VHF and UHF radio frequencies. To use the metaphor, a pager network is like a dedicated single-lane dirt road.
Dirt road.
Yeah, it's not fancy, you absolutely cannot drive a Ferrari on it, but it never, ever gets jammed. Furthermore, those specific radio frequencies penetrate thick, concrete hospital walls and underground structures vastly better than cellular signals.
Oh, wow. Didn't realize that.
The fact that emergency responders, surgeons, and nuclear engineers still rely on them is a profound reminder that older, simpler technology is frequently the superior engineering solution for a specific critical problem.
The single-lane dirt road. That perfectly explains why they are still buzzing away.
Yeah.
So, looking at our 90s timeline, we had portable media giving us the private bubble of the Walkman. We had portable communication giving us the unbreakable dirt road of the pager.
Right.
But we still didn't have the brain. The final piece of this puzzle was the ultimate tech holy grail, attempting to put our schedules, our actual handwriting, and real computing power right into the palms of our hands.
The wildly ambitious transition from portable gadgets to truly portable personal computers. This is the era where the blueprints for the modern smartphone were drawn up.
And it is a masterclass in the dangers of being too early to the market.
Absolutely.
And when we talk about being too early, we have to talk about Apple. They are an absolute monolith today, but in the 90s, they had some spectacular swings and misses.
They certainly did.
The most famous one from our sources is the Apple Newton Message Pad, which launched in 1993. This was a heavy, handheld computer with a stylus. It was essentially the very first device to try and popularize touchscreen technology and handwriting recognition.
The Newton is a fascinating case study. In every measurable, conceptual way, it was the direct spiritual precursor to the modern iPad.
Just way, way ahead of his time.
Apple was trying to invent the tablet computer nearly 2 decades before the general public, or frankly, the underlying hardware, was ready for it.
And it failed aggressively. Steve Jobs actually canceled the entire Newton product line when he returned to Apple in 1998.
It just couldn't survive.
The article notes it was doomed by an insanely high price tag and the fact that its flagship feature, the handwriting recognition, was famously mocked on shows like The Simpsons for translating normal English into absolute gibberish.
Eat up, Martha.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? If the Newton had touchscreens and handwriting tech back in 1993, wasn't Apple actually just competing with its own future self rather than competing with the other gadgets of the 90s?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you're hitting on the mechanical realities of early silicon chips. The sheer optimism of the 1990s tech boom encouraged wild swings like the Newton.
Yeah, they really went for it.
The vision of the Newton was seamless, natural interaction. It tried to learn the chaotic, unpredictable mess of human cursive. But analyzing the unique loops and slants of a million different handwriting styles requires massive computational processing power.
Which they just didn't have in 1993.
Not even close. The silicon chips of that era simply could not cash the checks that Apple software division was writing. The friction of constantly correcting the device's mistakes was too high for the average user.
It was a genius idea trapped in primitive hardware. And while Apple was swinging for the fences and struggling with the Newton, another company came along, looked at the problem, and solved it by completely flipping the script.
The Palm Pilot.
Yes, the Palm Pilot.
Released in 1996, the Palm Pilot succeeded precisely because it abandoned the Newton's ambition of being a full computer. It was laser-focused on daily utility. It was essentially your leather-bound executive day planner, digitized.
But it also had a stylus and a touchscreen. How did it avoid the handwriting gibberish problem that killed the Newton?
By lowering the computational burden, Palm Pilot succeeded because it didn't try to learn your writing. It forced you to learn its writing.
Wait, what do you mean?
They introduced a simplified alphabet called graffiti. To write the letter A, you had to learn to draw a very specific single stroke that the Palm Pilot's basic processor could easily recognize without fail.
That is brilliant. Instead of the computer doing the hard work of learning human behavior, they trained the humans to act a little more like computers.
Exactly. It's a fascinating compromise.
And people happily learned it. Palm Pilots achieved absolute dominance in the corporate world at the turn of the millennium. You could seamlessly tap through your contacts, your calendar, and eventually, on later models, get basic internet access.
But as the source notes, Palm completely shut down by 2011.
Right. What happened?
Well, as the 2000s progressed, the ruthless tech consolidation of that decade began. The modern consumer didn't want to carry a cell phone in one pocket, a Walkman in the other, and a Palm Pilot in their briefcase.
We demanded convergence.
Yes. The iPhone and early Android devices arrived and essentially swallowed all of these separate functions into one single slab of glass. Palm tried to pivot to making their own cell phones, but they just couldn't compete with the new smartphone monoliths.
It's the brutal circle of digital life. The sheer optimism of the 90s created these bold, weird, standalone devices, but the ruthless efficiency of the 2000s weeded out anything that hadn't yet perfected its user experience or wasn't an all-in-one super device.
It really was a culling.
Which brings us full circle. We've traced this incredible journey from the very first one-way radio in a 1921 Detroit police car to the massive 90s cultural boom of Walkmans and Palm Pilots, all the way to the final quiet death of the last VCR manufactured in 2016.
When we look at these discontinued devices, we aren't just looking at dead plastic and silicon. We are looking at the specific stepping stones of human behavior.
Yeah, that's so true.
Each gadget solved one specific problem. Whether it was untethering our media schedules, creating portable communication dirt roads, or digitizing our personal organization. Every single one of those solutions eventually got absorbed and weaponized by the modern smartphone.
And that is exactly why, if you're sitting there listening to this and feeling totally overwhelmed by the glowing screen in your pocket, it makes perfect sense why you might be nostalgic for this clunky era of tech.
Absolutely. It's a natural reaction.
You aren't just missing the physical feeling of pushing a tape into a VCR or sliding a Talkboy into your backpack. You are grieving the boundaries those devices inherently provided.
The boundaries are key.
A Walkman only played music. A pager only sent numeric alerts. They couldn't doomscroll Twitter, they couldn't track your location, and they didn't demand your complete undivided psychological attention 24 hours a day.
Understanding this history helps us think critically about what we want from our devices today. The technological constraints of the 1990s inadvertently protected our attention spans. They forced intentionality.
Because they couldn't do anything else.
Right. By looking backward at how we used to interact with these single-purpose tools, we might actually figure out how to demand healthier digital boundaries from the all-in-one supercomputers we carry today.
I think that's the ultimate takeaway. And it leads you, the listener, with a brand new concept to really mull over. Based on the fact that 2 million people are fiercely holding on to the single-lane dirt road of their pagers, and a whole new generation is buying dedicated Sony Walkmans just to escape their notifications.
It makes you wonder what's next.
It really does. What if the ultimate luxury status symbol of the near future isn't owning the absolute newest, most connected folding smartphone? What if the greatest flex of the next decade is having the sheer privilege and the professional freedom to carry a device that only does one single thing at a time? Something to think about the next time your phone demands your attention.